There's something a bit ironic about the evidence that the vast basic common surface between every human being on Earth is, well, the planet we relate to others. Also, almost every terminology has its term and a justification for why it's such. So there's a deep hidden history when we call our planet Earth a terrestrial place or a world. The history behind the name Earth has been lost in history, but linguistics gives some prominent clues behind it. Do you want to know about it? If so, keep watching the video. There is diversity in the terms, but they all indicate a former worldview, that time before anyone understood our planet, which was barely a productive domain floating in the enormous shadow of space. To adequately comprehend how our Earth was considered historically, it's significant to recall that the world was generally considered as barely the setting of validity, and not so great a particular area. The term world itself didn't initially connote the Earth at all, but rather it is the state of human life. Germanic in heritage, world is a mixture of two now ancient phrases clarifying directly to age of man. In this view, the components that compose validity were classified relatively considerably as the classical components of water, fire, air, and earth. Our phase Earth originated from a much former phase, which implied completely the ground, or we can also say the opposite of the sea, much the way the phrase Earth can be utilized nowadays. The word Eartha is an estimated spelling for the ground, which means the ground upon which we exist in Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxon is one of the many forefather terminologies of English. Anglo-Saxon is a contemporary phrase about a cultural organization that resided within modern-day England and Wales quickly after the Roman Empire declined between the 5th century and the Norman conquest. The people's identities were complicated, and distinct individuals had different groups, and that depends on their history, family, and where they live. The name Eartha is similar to other names that imply our Earth. The word Eartha in Anglo-Saxon says the bottom on which we step, the bottom in which we cultivate our crops. So it is explained by the freelance archaeologist and historian Gillian Havel. He is known as the muddy archaeologist. Eartha also correlates to an area in which life arises and probably to the forefather laid to rest on the surface, but periodically. The term can alter its significance relying on the culture. There are other popular names for Earth that come from Latin. Let's look at that too. The term terra implies the land. This land is the same as the one on which we are surviving, farming, and oppositely interacting. This is where we obtain the modern-day English phrases terrestrial, extraterrestrial, subterranean, and etc. Orbis was utilized when writers needed to speak about Earth as a world. Authors knew our Earth was globe. Havel explained the historical Romans, who nearly attended Greek science. Greek Eratosthenes scaled our Earth's perimeter. In 240 BC, orbis is the original phrase for the modern-day orbit. But there was another phrase, mundus, which was implied to interpret the total of the universe. The Earth is everything that includes us, but it was relatively apparent that it is separated from other realms. So the historian Havel explained about the mundus. Mundus is indicated in the present-day French phrase monde. That is the world, the Spanish mondo and Italian mondo, and the Portuguese mondo, which are Romance language, forefathers of Latin. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder composed a big set of volumes on biological history in the 1st century and utilized mundus for quite a while in his compliances. Furthermore, from Pliny, we learn a bunch of the language utilized to name planets. The naming is done through the International Astronomical Union, although each civilization has its beliefs and appellations. The belief in planet appointing utilized by the Romans dates as far behind as the Babylonians at least. Do you know about Babylonia? Well, Babylonia was a complicated nation in parts of modern-day Iraq and Syria, best remembered for its king, Hammurabi. He is nearly correlated with the law code established under his supremacy. Babylonia prevailed from about 1900 through 539 BC. The Persians then seized this region. The Persians came to be the tremendous rival of the Greeks, but both of these monarchies also dealt with a ton of intercultural proficiency, and this is how the Greeks integrated some of the gods from Persia. After that, when the Romans succeeded in the vanguard, they integrated beliefs from the nations they reached, including Greece, into their pantheon of gods. This enabled a goddess of love from Babylonia, Ishtar, to become the Aphrodite under the Greeks and Venus under the Romans. The Greek word for planets implies something like wandering ones or wanderer. This is according to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. The Romans provided these planets terms, founded on how they occurred to the exposed eye in the atmosphere, centuries before telescopes were accessible. But these terms aren't constantly widespread either. As you know earlier, planets were named after gods. This was evident from Pliny the Elder, who occasionally named Mercury by another god's term, Apollo, because Apollo was nearly correlated with the sun. Mercury itself was a carrier of the gods and correlated with tourists, among much extra significance. The planet is named after Venus, whose associations comprise the deity of love, and it was occasionally named Lucifer, the light bringer. This was the term the planet might put up with in the morning when it rises in the morning. The Romans comprehended that Venus rises in the dawn or the evening, but its name could alter depending on the exhibit's characteristics. Mars, Pliny previous composed, is burning with fire. This may be because Pliny believed that Mars was extremely near to the sun. Pliny and other Romans of the day were interpreting Ptolemy's geocentric sidereon that put Earth amid the universe. Now, coming to Jupiter. Jupiter's yellow impression was correlated with the emperor of the gods, and Saturn, which came after Jupiter, according to the geocentric model of Jupiter's creator under Roman folklore, which also borrows from ancient beliefs. The people were called Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto centuries later. And this is the initial telescopic duration. Strive to endure this belief of godly associations to be compatible with how the Romans accomplished it. But actually, this method was not widespread. For instance, Uranus was nearly coded after George III. The German-born British astronomer William Herschel strived a means to thank his economic supporter, and according to NASA. In the 15th century, academics started to review our planet's form and position in the universe. As a result, it was revealed that the word Earth first came to be utilized for the planetary body. We understand it as nowadays. The word is considered similar to other planets like Mars, Venus, Saturn, and other realms of space. But despite these timely astronomers and mathematicians explaining that Earth was just a planet and not the aggregate of life, the belief didn't blow home for quite a time. Photographic information about our round blue planet Earth didn't happen till the 1950s. You will find that the later pictures, like Earthrise, would substantiate the planet. What we all understand now, that Earth is a small ecosystem in the immensity of space. Many sources tell us that Earth is the only planet in our solar system which is not labeled after a Greco-Roman goddess. The term utilized in Western Academy during the period of the Renaissance was Tellus Mater, or Terra Mater, which is the Latin word for Earth Mother, or we can say Mother Earth, the deity of the world in historical Roman theology and mythology. You will see that from the Latin terra, with ancestries in the Proto-Indo-European word, it signifies dry. Roman terminologies originated from their term of earth, including the French la terra, Spanish la tierra, and Italian la terra. Several English terms are constructed from the origin terra, but maybe instantly from Latin, like terra firma, territory, terrestrial, or through the languages such as French, like a terrace for example. Other terminologies also originate their word for earth from terms to perform with the soil. You will be thrilled to know that the Sanskrit for soil, ground, is formulated into bhumi in Dravidian terminologies such as Telugu and Malayalam, and the word bhumi in Indonesian. If we look at the Japanese and Korean terminologies, then chikyu for Japanese and jigs for Korean are found in Chinese Mandarin. So we came to the end of this video. What do you think of the name Earth? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon below to get notification for our next video, The Real Story of Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.